Flat Earth Debate live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and X. We are joined by Neil, Wandek, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server. So welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning. Enthusiastic bunch that you all are. The drunk American Trump supporter has disappeared. Jolly good. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
I do not have drunken supporters, okay? They're all decent citizens.
You do one decent Trump impression and you think you're an impersonator.
No, I'm working on my craft. There's this guy, Shane Gillis, I've been watching. Like, phenomenal Trump impersonator.
Okay. You just got the one good saying, the dogs one. That works well.
Well, all ballers are dogs.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Well, we're moving?
We're claimed in the heliocentric paradigm to be moving, yes, Neil.
Negative. Earth is flat and stationary. I think they even teach that when learning how to fly.
Learning about the what?
When you learn how to fly, right? You go to aviation school, and they teach you that you are to treat it as a flat, non-rotating stationary plane, correct?
Yeah.
Well, bye-bye axial rotation.
What's this? I love a bit of Santos. He basically says what Nathan has been saying about the heliocentric model about 5 minutes. Is this worth looking at, Wandek?
No, it's not worth looking at. It's just, it just popped up and it was just pointing out why, like you point out of the Copernicus model, that it's just merely to help describe things that are going on. He just touches on that a little bit, but it's what you've been saying on the OMI vids and to everybody, or whatever it was. It's just there to better explain things that are happening in the sky. And that's the only reason. And he even admits that, Copernicus, that it is still a hypothesis and it's not to be taken as a true word. It's just to better help people or to describe things, what's happening, the lights in the sky as such.
You don't think it's worth giving Santos a bit of airtime for it? You say it's at 5 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, you can have a listen. I don't think I listened to the end, but I got to that point. I thought, oh, Nathan's been saying that thing, that similar wording. But put it on, see what you think.
A Jesuit boy, Copernicus, to create a theory, which it still is. It's called the Copernican theory, and he said it's a hypothesis.
It's neither.
Not to be taken as absolute truth. It's only useful to describe certain phenomena. Thank you, Copernicus. Those were his words. Here it says, when you look up Pope Paul III, in the third paragraph, you'll read this. Paul III was significant patron of saint artists, including Michelangelo, and it is to him that Nicholas Copernicus dedicated his heliocentric treatise. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Then the Jesuits started. Then 2 years later, they convened the Council of Trent. The Council of Trent lasted 18 years. Now, there had been 21 councils in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church. 21 councils. In 1545 to 1563, 18 years, the Jesuits and the Copernican model, they gathered in Trent, the Council of Trent, for 18 years. All the other 20 councils only lasted 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and one, the longest one was 5 years. In these 18 years, they called that council the Council of the Counter-Reformation. Because you see, there was two guys getting around that didn't like the Copernican globe theory. And they were called Martin Luther and John Calvin. Let's see what they had to say, shall we?
Was there any more that you're acutely aware we need to cover? If not, we'll...
No, like I say, Nathan, it wasn't really to watch. I was just pointing out that that little bit there. I just caught my ears, and you've been touching on that quite a lot with the with your chats and discussions with people, just explaining that it is helpful for only explaining things, and that's all there is to it.
Sure. I mean, it's one of those that I've got the words of QE ringing in my ears while you say that. It's like any village idiot can explain things. It's actually offering some decent validation for that which you're offering up your supposed explanations. Now, in the case of Copernicus, he's trying to better predict where the stars will be with these incorrectly being ascribed as hypotheses, but they're not. A hypothesis is a suppositional statement that's yet to be validated in scientific vernacular, and that is certainly not what we're doing. He's also suggesting the word theory. Now, theory is even more objectionable, because theories formed after scientific validity is offered through experimentation. That's to say, you've got an empirical outcome, a proven causal influencer of an effect you're studying. That's a successful experiment. Then you can form a theory. So it's a really important word when you're trying to describe stuff with science in mind. And certainly when people appeal to Copernicus and heliocentrism in general, they're under the misapprehension this is all scientifically based. And it's words like hypothesis and theory that delude you into that belief when it's just not the case, right? None of this is science. It's maths. It's eloquent maths. Beautiful maths, you could even call it. Out of the box thinking beyond my comprehension in some instances, in terms of not the model that's been derived thereafter, but the way of coming to it by the minds of people like Copernicus. To think that far outside the box, right, to put you on an equatorial plane in the side a sphere which has a line of motion around a sun, mathematically, it's like so far out there when now we can all do this, most of us at least, can detach ourselves from the old, dusty, heliocentric belief that we were trapped in to a time and look back on it from the outside and go, well, actually, now we can look back on it knowing that we aren't actually on a spinning ball flying around the sun with the motion described through the centre of hell, with us describing it in the centre of an Earth that we couldn't possibly be standing on. We can say to come up with that idea is pretty out there and takes a certain type of person and a certain type of mindset to really, really think outside of the box to try and unify several different motions that are observed in the sky, tracked and measured on a flat Earth, to give a better predictive capability to the church at their behest. And then they go, here you go, this is how I've managed to somehow unify some of these motions so that they line up with the prediction of where they'll be when they don't tally in terms of their pattern. There's differing patterns. Well, this single system where mathematically we put the Earth in motion around the sun, holy crap, does actually do a pretty good job of describing these epicycles. Check it out. I've added an ellipse to it. Or whatever they're, tweaking these maths with. You fast forward 500 years and people think they're standing on it. They've reified it into actual physical existence. Doesn't mean that you can't stand back as a flat earther and go, yeah, the heliocentric model's pretty eloquent. I remember 5 years ago saying that, people chastising me. How dare you say anything complimentary? Like, well, I was quite into it, actually. I thought it was quite cool the way it all worked. I was under the misapprehension that was actually the world at one stage. I'm not anymore. Doesn't mean I can't look back with a certain degree of admiration for people like Copernicus and the models, if you want to call them that, they're not, but the maths that they created. They're only called models because of the reification and assumption that we do have something in model format. We don't. We just have Copernicus's maths. But they're quite eloquent if you stand back from them. You know, it's not scary to say, as it seems Santos is saying, this is their best effort to try and explain some of this stuff. Doesn't mean you have to reify it into a spherical surface to stand upon. We aren't.
It's not
Go on,
really
Chocolate, you're ruining my audio stream, but go ahead.
First of all, good morning.
Good
Can
morning.
you guys hear me?
Hey,
Hey guys.
Yeah, we hear you coming in.
All right. I was gonna say I agree with what you're saying. It's a cool, like, we're not lying when we say it's a cool story, because yeah, it is a cool story. It's just not real. You know what I mean? Like the whole standing on the ball, spinning around and flying around to the galaxy. Yeah, it's cool, but it's just not real. And the way that the guy that we were listening to before, the way he described it, the way he described Copernicus describing it, it almost sounded like kind of like Newton. It was like, I'm just using this to describe what I'm seeing. Don't go all the way with it. You know what I mean? Kind of like Newton was like, this gravity thing is, don't go all the way with it. It's just an idea. Don't run with it. And years later, that like you said, we're standing on it. You know what I'm saying? It's great.
There's a consistent
Yeah,
thing.
but it is eloquent.
They don't want you to
I agree
reify
with
it into
Nathan.
physical existence when they're trying to explain something with maths or describe something better predictively in the case of orbital motion or elliptical orbital motion. There's a kind of running theme that they're like, well, yeah, but don't reify it into thinking you're actually standing upon a sphere. You're not.
Well, they ran with it.
Don't ascribe this to me after I die. Do me that favor. He dies. Oh, it's Newton's gravity. Literally plaster his name all over it. Fantastic.
Wouldn't it be? I mean, at the end of the day, if that's the reason they've had to bring this globe model into play, wouldn't they have just been better saying, well, listen, we've tried to study these heavens and explain it, but it's absolutely impossible because we haven't got a clue and there's no way of doing it or validating it scientifically or whatever. But the only way we can sort of explain it is to pretend that we live on a ball, but we don't actually live on a ball. But that's the only way we can do it, and just be open and honest about it rather than saying, well, this is the only way we can explain it, and we're going to try and convince people that we do live on the ball.
Oh, why the ball?
Because it's just what Copernicus and Kepler and Huygens ran with to try and better explain the motions of the lights in the sky so they could tie down certain events that were dependent on astrological positioning. So, a quick shout out to Santos. I've put his link to the video that we just listened to. But there is actually another one that Divergent Droid shared. So if you did want to let Santos know, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, I'm sure he'd be grateful of the views and the comments. But we have actually got a different video to cover, which I'll bring up now. And this has been suggested by Divergent Droid. So I'll just read out his comment. Nathan, if you want another short video, to use this one, starting at the 12-minute mark. It's just like... run for 2 minutes. The guy used low tech to determine his location via elevation angles using a protractor. This 12-minute mark. Oh, he's already time-stamped it by the looks. Yes, he has. Cool. Thank you, Divergent. Very slick.
Satellite phone. I'm rejecting all two-way communications with the outside world to add to the realism. Besides, who wants to hear the bloody phone ringing out here? I do, however, have a satellite tracker that lets my family know where I am each day. If I go missing, this will negate the need for an expensive area search by the authorities.
Okay, so we've got a general gist of what we're about to encounter. Obviously, this isn't related directly to our subject in terms of the debate, but it will be related to a flat Earth proof momentarily.
to be here, I've secured special permission from the relatives of the Balangara Aboriginal people who rescued the original aviators.
So the biggest question for the aviators on that first night must have been, where on earth are we?
They were flying from Europe to Australia, and on this leg had taken off at midnight from Kupang, Indonesia, for Darwin, Australia. They expected a strong right crosswind, so aimed right to compensate.
Did play for 2 minutes. We've had a minute so far. I hope, obviously, it's going to get into the navigation aspect. We'll see. I can only assume Divergent Droid won't let us down.
When the sun rose and they saw land to the south, they assumed the wind had blown them off track to the north. In actual fact, there mustn't have been much wind. And they ended up way down here to the south. I solved my position by marking the angle at which a particular star, called Mintaka, in Orion's belt, sets.
And I mark where it crosses the fishing line.
Using parallel lengths of fishing line and a hanging rock.
Let's have a look at the results from last.
Okay, so showing the parallel sky, parallel ground, elevation angle measurement that we detail on a regular basis. So props, we'll give this guy the same love that we'd normally give any videographer. You never know, you might even do a response and put a link to our video. Chance would be a fine thing. But in the meantime, please let this videographer know, that's FD Adventure, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a polite comment that won't immediately get removed by the YouTube censor bots or the videographer themselves. Not that it would be in the slightest bit detrimental or derogatory to this particular videographer. He's saying what we say, right? He's shown it. Let's just rewind to his diagrammatical example of the parallel plane and sky that is absolutely unequivocally required to establish an elevation angle measurement as he did in his video.
Last night.
Using parallel lengths of fishing line and a hanging rock.
Okay, so he's describing what he's measuring with respect to the sky running parallel to the ground. He's taking his elevation off a plumb bob, so he doesn't have to minus it from 90. But ultimately, he could find his position using this method exactly as we describe on an almost daily basis. Props, I'll play out the last 20 seconds just in case there is anything else relevant, because he did say a couple of minutes. That's Divergent Droid. But as I've said, there's a link going by to his channel. Divergent Droid's also putting it in, I would assume. Did I put it in? Pretty sure I did. Anyway, go and let me know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me.
Let's have a look at the results from last night.
This angle, measured on an improvised protractor, will always equal your latitude. It placed me somewhere on the North Kimberley coast.
I've got a great deal of respect.
I love
Perfect. Thank you very much, Divergent Droid.
It's how it's always been done, hasn't it? Throughout the ages, navigation, finding your points and position. It's all to do with angles to the lights in the sky. And that's how it's always been done, because that's how it has to be done, because that's what you're dealing with. Horizontal planes and angles and elevation angles. You're not dealing with curvature. So there's no need for curvature, because it wouldn't work on curvature, because the Earth is flat and stationary, and that's how it's dealt with.
Indeedy. 94 people watching. Please share the show if you've not done so already. Smash that share button. Stick it on your favourite platform, Bebo, MySpace, whatever it is that you currently use. And just let them know we're live right now. Share button.
MySpace.
What time?
I just think it's funny you say MySpace.
Space.
I didn't hear what he said. I've got blocked ears. Anyway, shout out to Duncan McLeod. He says, that's a nice flat map he's using. Yeah, all maps are flat. It's probably one of my most repeated responses to comments. So you get your average skank and file globetard coming to the comments and say something like, where's your flat earth map? And you're like, all maps are flat. They have to be, or they wouldn't work with elevation angles like on screen now. sun-based elevation angle, solar elevation angle measurement, like the ones they measured in Antarctica, off a flat plane.
It was.
While I have a second, and it's a little quiet here. Number one, I'd like to apologize. I went and listened to the episode from yesterday, and I heard how atrocious my mic is when I'm on Bluetooth. I'm sorry for everybody. I apologize for that because I didn't know my mic was really that bad.
Yeah, that's all right. You've got good input, though, so we put up with it because it's you. But yeah, you're right to apologise.
Yeah, I'll work on trying to get a better one. I'm sorry about that.
That's all good.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, the episode was freaking hilarious, right? And here's why, right? Being that we've been in this so long, right? Listening to them, the Globers, right? The way they try to kind of shoehorn perspective into the Earth curve math was hilarious to me. Because I remember distinctly from these people, these same people that used to tell us day in and day out, perspective doesn't exist. Perspective is nowhere near the Earth curve maths. The only thing that causes things to disappear in the distance is Earth curve, right? They couldn't stop saying it for years and years. Fast forward to yesterday in 2025, and the globe was losing their minds trying to tell us how there's perspective in the Earth curve maths. It was so amusing to me that I just had to share it.
Yeah, and to the uninitiated, what grieves me, Chocolate, as much as it's amusing to us, to the uninitiated, they'd see that. Or let's say that you were involved in it, right? You were up against somebody like that. They'd tell you, oh yeah, of course there's perspective in there. It's accounted for. You've got the top and the bottom of the item. You've got 3 points. That's perspective. Job's a good one. It's like, that isn't there, first and foremost. But if you don't know that and you can't recognise what the graph is showing and how the maths actually functions, you don't know they're lying. Now me, I was like, you're lying. No, it's not there. Don't keep telling me, of course it's there. I'm not uninitiated in this subject. I've debated with the calculator, given it a title, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve maths. You're telling me it's got perspective in it? Yeah, it's not like I'm going to get away with calling it a perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator for the last 5 years based on you telling me, yeah, of course it's in there. So you're a liar. The fact that he would assert that you would suggest that it's in there, to me, means he knows he's got to lie about it.
It sounded like to me during something like that, it sounded like the penny was sort of almost dropping with them or him. They couldn't, they said, well, we have got perspective, but in the model we've not, but we actually have. It's like the penny's dropping and the mind's actually seeing where the problem is now. We're pointing, it's not fully dropped, but the cogs are turning in the brain, maybe.
There's only three things they're really focused on, right? It's perspective is not. Perspective now has to be in the globe Earth math, so you furfer, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Number two, level has to be curved, right? Because that's just the way it is in reality until we start talking about the ball, because one of them did say that at one point, right?
But they're desperate to shoehorn it in at the point that me, a flurf, is saying there's no perspective in Earth curve maths. They've hijacked it. They're just calling it Earth curve. Oh, it's definitely there. They all rally to tell the audience. And you're like, these people are deceitful.
So it's like they don't know, like we spent years looking at these so-called Earth curve maps, like literally.
So then boats wasn't disappearing over the physical Earth curve.
You guys told us it wasn't in there. You guys told us it didn't even exist 10 years ago. All of a sudden now it's in there, so it's all good. Nope. And they can't deal with it.
On one deck.
I was just saying, yeah, it's like saying, well, nobody said the boat was disappearing bottom first over the physical Earth curve edge. It's just due to perspective, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hijacked it. But it just seems a bit old hat. And because, for the audience's benefit, we're talking about yesterday's live show, and indeed Uncut and After Show. We stayed in there for about an hour afterwards as well. Or longer. Did we stay in there for quite a while? No, we went back to our own yeah, we did go back to our own server and I played on video games while everyone was chatting and responding to the aftermath, because apparently they were moaning about us after we'd left. And I'm like, so what? But QE went through it, listened to them moaning about us, and then responded to them moaning about us after we'd left. So you can check that out if you remember. But for the majority of the time, we were actually having a very good discussion. And it is just a couple of bad eggs in there that are intentionally stirring the pot. I feel bad for Geo. Now, they're all egging him on, telling him what he should be doing. And I've got a little bit more empathy now. I've spent a little bit more time around them and what they do there. And I can understand their bag, and I can roll with it. And I think SE Montreal heard that and was like, oh, okay. So they're trying to be conciliatory to what we want in our server, and they're obviously a bit defensive about it, and rightly so, right? You build a server, you're going to be protective of it, so you don't want me storming in my size 12s and suddenly ballsing everything up when you've tried to lay down some ground rules and have a certain pattern and a certain method of doing things in their own server, which is good. So, but I think SE recognised that I was trying to, like I say, be conciliatory, if that's the right word, and he then played ball with us. There's a bit of, back and forth, as in, it's like, all right, you're trying to work with us. Okay, fine. I'll give back to you and try and keep things under control. Not much, but enough for people to have a lot of praise for yesterday's show in the comments, at least. So if you feel like it, check out yesterday's show. It is called Earth Awakenings, because that's the name of the server.
Bev just wants to be somebody that's important. And he's really just a nobody.
Who?
How can you ever describe yourself or try to be a somebody when you say that you've measured Earth not to be flat? Does he hear himself?
Oh, you're talking about Bev?
Yes, because he was the key component coming in with his little questions to you. You're just in his head, Nathan.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, he's not the first. He won't be the last.
Yeah, whatever with him. I want to give props to Brian, because Brian literally, I don't know the guy's name. I think it was Omnivore or somebody. There were two guys, actually. Omnivore and some other dude who I think was supposedly a surveyor or something. Can I give Brian props? Because he literally took their heads off, played basketball with them, and then went home and took their heads and put them on his dresser. Do you understand the destruction that Brian handed off to them?
People gave him props in the comments too.
Props to that.
He didn't go unnoticed. Yeah, it didn't go unnoticed by me. It didn't go unnoticed by the commenters. Obviously, I'm going to be hypercritical because there were points that, although Brian deserved his victory dance, it didn't comport with their rules. So I'm between a rock and a hard place, because on the one hand, what I want to do is go, shut your stupid mouths and let Brian dance on this grave that is just dug for these two idiots. Let him have his dance. Now, when their response is to utterly hand wave what he's just said, and in order to comport with what they want in Earth Awakenings, I have to sit there and take that, right? So at certain points, you'll listen back to the recording, I had to shut down the G+ line, and it breaks my heart because Brian wants to shut them down immediately when they're hand-waving his victory dance. But in the back and forth rules of Earth Awakenings, for whatever reason, they get to do that. In defeat, it's tolerated to say, well, no, you didn't win, moving on and hand-waving you entirely because you just don't understand maths, new subject, chaff, redirect. Yeah, you've just got to sit there and take that. Now, there were points that Brian wasn't going to be taking that. Yeah, but it's one of those. Brian did exceptionally well in the argument, which is all that really matters, isn't it? Yeah? Didn't matter that they're trying to hand wave his victory dance. Who cares? The points were laid down. He took the reds off. It was epic. Yeah, Brian does deserve props.
He did well as well because, like you say, we had to give a bit of leeway there and give them time to talk utter nonsense. But Brian did let him speak for a while. I can't remember the exact point now. And he was going on to different points. And then when Brian came back in, he went back to the original point where he was incorrect and just kept bringing him back to that. So it's always good to make that note, let him waffle on and just bring him back to that point until it's resolved or conceded.
Yeah, there was a few times that the moderators had tried to take the discussion away, like about a third of the way through. They're like, are we done with these guys? And Brian's like, actually, no. I would like to actually keep them on their claim. 101 people watching. Woo hoo hoo! Thank you very much to all of you. Smash the share button. Please smash that share button if you've not done so already. It's like 2 clicks to put it on your favourite Bebo or MySpace or Facebook or Twitter, wherever you like. So please share the show. It's just a couple of clicks if you've not done so already. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see Brian later. And it'll be more of the same tomorrow in politics. But it's nice to have a bit of in-betweeny reflection on things like trips to Earth Awakenings, future endeavours in the politics server. I need to clear it with the politics server that we're alright to just pop in randomly as well. Because I had, on a couple of occasions, gone in on random days. And we end up just sitting for 20 minutes waiting for whatever discussion that's heated to carry on. You might get one random conversation. Go ahead, whoever that was in Discord. Jedi.
You are welcome to pop into politics whenever you want, Nathan. Anytime you want.
Oh, brilliant. Now, well, that sorts that out. I want more of like yesterday. If you're unexpected, right, you're like the hand up Mona Lisa's skirt, as we said in Devil's Advocate. You're a surprise. So we may do exactly that, pop into politics unexpectedly more often. Because I've done it a couple of times.
Yeah, that'd be epic. Do that. Just pop in anytime you want, mate. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I shall do that. Is there any other servers? I mean, I'm not saying that politics and Earth Awakenings and indeed this server, which is my home from home, if you will, Flat Earth Debate Discord server. Are there any others? I had put this call to action out a couple of weeks ago and nobody even said anything. It literally just faded to nothing immediately. But if there is any suggestion of other particular places that you'd like to see us, then just say, or let us know, maybe leave a comment. But yeah, we're more than happy to go on tour the Discord, if you will, and spread what we know. It don't have to be related to the subject. That's to say, it doesn't have to be like Earth Awakenings and politics, which are specifically flat Earth rooms, and indeed, obviously, this one. Go ahead.
I may know of someone that I can reach out to. Her name is Allison. She likes to, I don't know, for whatever reason, corral flat earthers, even though she's not. She's one of those kind of women that have, I'm assuming, a degree in certain fields, and she takes arms up against us who have this rigid scientific method when, you know, in her discipline, whatever she's spent, you know, all that time learning is also science to her. So I don't know how much of that really conflicts with what we try to say or whatever, but needless to say, she's tried to pull me into different places to speak to, I guess, those normies, if you will, and I haven't been much interested. But maybe I can reach out to her and see if she knows of any service.
Yeah, like I say, I'm all for it. Anywhere that it might be of value to either the people in that server or the audience that I have. And that's basically it. My obvious first priority is my own audience, but, you know, there's a good chance if it's not, which it probably won't be, directly related to this subject, but people are talking about it in that server. That's my hope, that this subject does permeate other servers, and people are like, well, actually, there's a guy out there that's more than willing to come and just chat to us. His name is Nathan Oakley. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Nathan. Hey, everyone. How are things?
Yes,
Yeah,
Brian.
good. You were getting props in the comments about yesterday's performance.
Yeah, Brian, how are those heads doing on your dresser? Doing all right?
Oh, those people, lads from yesterday. Actually, I owe Eli, if you're there, I'm sorry. I owe you an apology. I wasn't very nice to you. I get a bit carried away with myself. I kind of just want their mods to say it, to be quiet or whatever. I find it hard. find it hard when I know. Maybe it's from just not lack of patience, having to deal with these people for so many years. But you know exactly what the person is doing. They're going to drone on, right, and make several claims. It's like a scattergunning of claims, but in slow motion, and they're being allowed to do it. And I just don't have patience. So I probably didn't show great manners there when I was in there, and I didn't with Eli. But it's hard to deal with. Sorry.
Well, thank you, man. That apology really means a lot to me this morning. You know, yeah, I know. I sympathize with how you feel. Like we all know what it's like to hear someone completely begin a sentence knowing it's going to be 5 minutes, having nothing to do with what you just said. And you kind of just want to stop them right there. And that's our weakness right now. We're used to doing that. But when we're venturing off into the world, that's kind of not acceptable because they don't understand why we're doing it. Now, Earth Awakenings, of course they do. I was just trying to say,
not necessarily. I could have kissed you actually yesterday. You get an apology, which is great. It's not necessary that Brian apologises to you because he's in the heat of battle and I'll defend him for doing that while he's bracing against you. But 2, 3, whatever it was, months ago, Brian and I had a little falling out because I tried to do the same, just without the same demeanour as you had, which is to say I was just yelling at him to shut up and telling him he was being disrespectful, whereas you just broke it down in a very calm way while it was occurring, which is difficult to do, Eli. And you did it exceptionally well. And I'm sitting here nodding, going, come on, Brian, just listen to what Eli's telling you and take the hint. And he did. And from that point forth, to a degree, Brian was tolerant of the circumstances because you laid them out. Now, me explaining them to Brian wouldn't have worked because Brian and I just have a different dynamic. He'd have braced against me, right? But you doing it, I could have kissed you because it worked. Brian was more successful as a result of you doing that. He doesn't need to apologise to you, though, does he? He's doing what he does.
I think I do. I think Eli was right? You were right, Eli. It's just at the time, it felt like you were moderating me. I just wanted to, you know, when I hear someone saying things that I know are wrong, and I say, no, that's wrong, and they continue on doing it, it infuriates me. Because that means they don't even want the correction. But you were right. Yeah. I apologise for my behaviour with you. You were right. I should have just yielded. And Nathan is right, because if Nathan starts saying it to me, he won't go about it like you did. He won't be kind of diplomatic about it. He's going to be very blunt about it. That's me and him are going to be at loggerheads. But I do need to do that.
I wanted you to get you were on your thug energy yesterday.
Well, that's it. You can't get in the way.
Henchman energy. Yeah, he was on his henchman energy. It's like I just wanted you to be able to you know, very with a nice clearing, decapitate him the way that you did. And I just know that their tactic, and it's the only one they have left, is to throw poop so that you get upset so that everybody can shut everything down. That's what they've been doing to us for years already, so that they can justify not hearing what we're saying, because they say stupid shit and then we just react in a very visceral way. And then because the conversation and the topic happens to be on their side because of the ad populum fallacy, we lose by default. I don't want to see that happening over and over. If I have to shut up so that when I say, hey, other side, shut the fuck up because I did it, sorry for the because I did it for you, you got to give me the same respect. Come on. I was just quiet. Tell that man to be quiet. But I can't do that if we're not doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that. It's like we can't be hypocritical about it. You have to go by what the server is like. That server is that way. So if I'm going to be in there, I have to accept that. It's just the way it is. I have to learn to be... I have no patience anymore with them.
Me neither.
Because as soon as I hear you know what I mean? As soon as you hear the first two words, you know exactly where it's going. You've heard it all 1,000 times before, and it's gone to the same place 1,000 times before, which is no evidence for any of their claims.
You want a bit of positive spin?
Sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say that the positive spin is, after going through it, the mill yesterday in Earth Awakening's server, what I did notice is, so long as they get that there, you get to go. You don't get to chastise them when they hand wave dismiss within the first breath that which you've just won with. They are allowed to do that for however long they get to waffle on, and they even, in my humble opinion, do get slightly more than they're deserving of, so that that's Earth Awakenings, seem completely unbiased. Now, more power to them if that's their shtick. It just feels a bit unfair when literally they'll allow them to half yammer their way through your example, but you're expected to sit in total silence while they hand wave you. Yeah? Either way, the bonus to that was that it seemed like the mill only lasted about half as many times. So on Flat Earth debate, with the tolerance level for, no, you're not just going to get to hand wave me. Yes, I will immediately shut you down when you try and hand wave me and dismiss what I've just said without addressing it. I will stop you in your tracks, right? When that's not allowed, that's the Earth Awakenings method, the mill only lasts 5 repetitions. So at the point where we get to they get their turn, you get your turn, it's still the same length of time because you're 10 back and forths in all, right? But it's just you haven't cut off 5 of them. But they then recognise that the argument's well and truly dead and that the person's been defeated and that they're having to obfuscate. And they're subtly saying, should we move on to a different person? Because they're recognising how dead the opponent is. So they don't have to necessarily back you with words. They're backing you with demeanour when their treatment of the person, seemingly justified, is this person's useless to us now. Let's move on. Yeah? So it did have... It's very different to the way we do things, right? And I was saying this before you got here, actually, Brian. It seemed like SC Montreal was giving us a nod, a surreptitious nod to, oh, right, you're recognising our rules finally. Okay, we'll work with you then. That's how it seemed to me. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, they're like that. Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have Montreal working with us.
Other than die slow, because I was like, man, this is just too much of a poison apple. And then they were like, you haven't got mod powers here, die slow. And I was like, shut up, die slow.
But I did tell y'all months ago when I first started going into Earth Awakenings, I said, hey, and I couldn't remember his name, Chocolate, and I was like the dude with the voice, but SC Montreal, like, yeah, he came in, he gave his gripe with FED, and I said, well, am I being like that? He said, no. I said, well, seeing as that we can be cool now, let me just tell you what FED really is about. And so I would argue in our ways, and he's like, all right, Eli's cool, at least, so it's like he's able to work with you if you work with him, man. I've been said that.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a case of working through and building a bit of mutual respect, and that process has begun. Whereas previously it's like, they don't like us. Oh, we don't like them. Well, why not? If it wasn't for Neil going, well, let's just go and find out, we wouldn't have ever actually started this process, which I see as beneficial. Based on the comments from yesterday, people liked what we did there, and based on the reception, they're pleased to have us, for whatever reason. Now, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth in that regard and question it. It's just like, okay, fine, you want that from us. Hopefully we're starting to show them we can do that. Not that big a deal either. Okay, right, fine. I've ripped him a new one. I've got to sit here and listen to him hand wave me for 3 minutes and then reiterate it again. Okay, no worries.
That's tough, though.
It's little things with me. When that guy said, when I started asking him about trigonometry and the use of the trigonometry to measure out distances between a whole mountain, like between mountains and a mountain range, he threw in, well, after we've taken spherical excess into account, he knew at that point he was absolutely BSing everyone, right? And he knew who was. All he knew was, well, that was tough. For me, it's like, no, you are just lying now. You're trying to throw in something that has some connection to curvature within trigonometry, something you can't throw that in with. Like, you can't, like, that was a completely paradoxical situation he was trying to promote.
Yeah.
So
that was what he literally took his sword out of his sheath and sliced his own head off with it. fantastic.
Yeah. 'Cause you know what? It's like what we all know the same thing with all of them. You go, okay, show me this evidence you have. Show it to me. Present it. Present what it is. Give the links, whatever. And it always ends up being the same thing because we know what it's going to be. They needed a flat out, and then afterwards they mathematically, created a globe from the measurements, whatever that was taken. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always the same thing.
And the verb they'll use to describe it, they're corrections, they're adjustments, they're calculations. They knew that they'd have to make these adaptations because it's a globe. And it's always because it's a globe that they're having to convert from flat. Like, no. You wouldn't be doing any converting if it was a globe. You'd just be measuring a globe. You're not. You're measuring Earth flat.
Exactly. It's like when he said to get to absolute, what they had to add in globe corrections to get absolute accuracy on the elevation of Mount Everest, something like that. Like, you cannot determine elevation above a curved surface. It's impossible to determine correct elevation above a curved surface. So the fact that you're even trying to input a curved surface as the thing that made it accurate is so alien to anyone who understands measurement. You know what I mean? It's like you can't do that. You can't determine accurate heights above a curved surface. You need a horizontal plane to determine those accurate heights because you have no baseline, nothing to garner, nothing to compare it to. And, things like that, little statements like that. It's like, no, what actually happened with Mount Everest, just 1 second, I'll just say, what they actually did with Mount Everest is they added on a little couple of meters, right, by adding in a load of globe stuff. That's what actually happened. Like 8 meters or something that doesn't exist. Go on, Chocolate.
I was going to say that's literally how that clown, what was his name? Manufactum or something. That's how he started it off. Oh, Nathan, now that you're here, I just wanted to ask you, did you come back with any understanding of measurements? Nathan was like, what, like height of eye off the surface level? Yeah, do you understand measurements? Yeah, like height of eye. We had to do that for like 40 minutes. You know how insane that is, bro?
Yeah, it is. But as I said yesterday, I was asking for one of the last things I said in there was I was asking for that guy was talking. Was a manufacturer? I don't know which one of the guys that was talking to him. Spoke to him in the past, and to get the elevation angle, one of the elevation angle measurements, one or two of them, just one will do, from the 100 miles away from Mount Everest. Well, I know once they present that, I know what it's going to be. You have to give the elevation of where it was taken from, and I know what it's going to be. A little bit of trigonometry, and it's over for them. But is he going to produce that? Well, I'm going to ask him if I'm in there again and I hear him again, bringing up the subject. Or even if I don't, I'm going to ask him, where are those measurements? Keep asking him for him.
The two names of guys that you were talking to, I think one of them was omnivore, and the other one, who I think was supposedly like a surveyor, or he pretended to be, one with the spherical axis, was like Shoebill or something like that, from what I can recall.
I don't know if that Shoebill guy came in. He was just sending links into live. I don't know if he even came in.
Yeah.
Did he come in?
Spoke. Definitely spoke.
I didn't know if he came in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was like the surveyor guy, the big bad that they brought in for you, whose head is now on your dresser.
I do remember now. There was two different guys, but they were both similar. They both had the same droning on thing, and they do this thing where they tag each other in and out, and some of them sound similar, and you don't know. Hang on, am I speaking to the same person? Or when one person is under pressure, some other guy comes in from the side with a question and takes the attention that way. So it takes the pressure off the guy who was losing.
Yeah,
this kind of thing.
Also,
I know that guy is.
And there was a lady in there that, in the middle of a discussion, so a point's been put to me, and she'll start answering the question on behalf of the flatties. And you're like, number one, you've put two questions that are globe-centric to me. Now you're responding like you're the flatty in charge of this discussion back and forth. Like, what the hell? So suddenly you've got to take charge of that. Now, bearing in mind that I'm having to take charge of that in their server while that occurred, while obviously the standards for how I keep you guys in check are of a much, much, much higher standard, right? I've got to tell you to shut up at any point that you're interrupting while random strange woman can start answering on my behalf. Like, that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. The standards are not the same on both sides. Should they not, ever?
But for whatever reason,
Standards on the globe side. Go on, sorry.
again, we don't know the reason. We've got to find that out. It probably will with more time in this particular server. We'll find out the reason behind that. There's probably a reason. They're like, well, it's because we want to be seen in this way, or we feel it's unjust that people get treated in this way when they're hand-waving and whatever else that we would obviously potentially argue the toss about it. But it's their server, and maybe we'll find that out.
No, we know what it is. They started those servers because they wanted to do it differently than how we do it here. Remember where their roots are. So it's good that we come back and we could abide by their rules and still tear people's heads off.
Yeah, exactly. And if they're saying they don't like the way we do it, then we should take heed and go, okay, no, well, if you say you can do it better, or the way you present this is better for some, then I want everyone in that regard to enjoy the material on the channel. And if it aids that, and based on yesterday's comments, people were appreciative of it, saying, okay, it isn't necessarily how I'd do it, but people have gone, I don't like the way they do it, I'll do it my way. Now, I've got more respect for the guy who goes out and goes, I don't like the way you do it, so I'll do it my way, which is better as far as I'm concerned. That person deserves more respect than the guy in the comments that goes, you shouldn't be swearing at people, you shouldn't be ad-homming them. Most of the time when people do that, you like timestamp where I've ad-hommed somebody. Clearly you don't know what an ad-hom is. The chances of me offering up an insult in lieu of an argument are very slim. But nevertheless, that kind of comment's worthless. The guy who set up a bleeding server, Geo in this instance, I've got a lot more time and respect for that guy, and therefore will put in more effort to try and be conciliatory with things like their rules, even if we don't see the point of them, or we even disagree in some instances. It's like, well, you don't know why that is the case. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to find out. In the meantime, the audience likes it, so who am I to disagree? So yeah, check out yesterday's show. It was a couple of hours. It's all there live. I did stay live for the majority of the discussion rather than putting it behind a paywall for a couple of weeks for members only. So if you did want to check it out as a General Joe audience member, you can check out yesterday's show, which is 2275.
I think... sorry, Nathan, I talked about...
Well, the only other thing I was going to ask before we do continue, because we've only got 5 minutes. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? I was going to say there's a video that someone shared, Chris shared it actually in Master B, from Dave Mckeegan. Now, I can only assume when he says equinox problem, that this is something that's going to be related to equatorial mounts and something directly related to flat Earth prerequisites to describe orbital motion. Now, maybe I'm giving Dave here too much credit, but as you're here, Brian, do you think we should have skimmed through to the way I think might be relevant? Should we have a quick goosey?
Well, I think you should just play it from the start and get you may as well, because listen, if Dave Mckeegan has a challenge out there, I seen the title, then you're going to be getting asked about this time and time again. You may as well know what it is, because you're going to have 50 million ballers asking you about it, aren't you?
Nah, they'd have already started asking. This just came out a day ago. So no, probably not. I'm more assuming that we'll glean a flat Earth proof out of it. Actually, that was my thinking. Anyway, we'll do what I think best.
There's no doubt about that. Like, there's no doubt about it that there'll be something in there that they'll need. We know.
Well, if my scrubbing skills are good enough, we'll get there within 30 seconds. We'll see. Well, let's have a listen.
Scenario that blows a huge hole in any idea of the Earth being anything other than a globe. Now, to understand the problem, we do need to fully understand how that EQ mount works. This...
Hello, was that 15 seconds?
Yeah, over.
Right, Brian, you take the lead.
This to me seems to be a little bit of damage control, because I pointed out things to do with the mounts when they were in Antarctica that proved the Earth to be a stationary plane. And that's what they do, because the EQ mount is designed to be it's called the EQ mount because it's an equatorial mount, because it's designed to hypothetically sorry, stand on their excuse me, 1 second.
All right. Do you mind not choking and dying
stand
on
on
my
their
show?
equatorial plane. Sorry.
I said, do you mind not choking and dying on my show? It's no good for ratings.
I know. So I had a little bit of dry bread at the back of my throat. The equatorial mount, right, is designed to be hypothetically stood upon the equatorial plane of a globe Earth. And that is the flat plane that cuts through the center of it. And it's designed to be on the equatorial plane at vernal equinox, the very thing that's used in celestial navigation, right? And at vernal equinox, it's pre-assumed because it mathematically, at vernal equinox, the 23.4 degree tilt of the globe is mathematically dismissed, basically. And it's pre-assumed that that equatorial plane extends out into the celestial plane, giving you a much huger flat plane, and that it is stationary and the celestial bodies are moving. So basically, what it's actually doing is it's stood on the surface of real Earth and referencing the celestial dome. That's what it's actually doing. So that's what the equatorial mount does. So anything after that, there is no challenge, because he has to use that system within his challenge, which means he has to use a system where he's using an apparatus for his telescope that is going to pre-assume a massive stationary flat plane. There's
Absolutely
no way around
correct.
it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And based on that, I only need those 15 seconds from his video. I didn't even watch it. I scrubbed through to that point. What a great guess. Props to me and Brian for his explanation, which was fantastic and concise. Right, there's Dave's link. Go and let Dave Mckeegan know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and make it explicitly clear that he needs a flat earth for his EQ mount. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. There's a link going by in the live stream chat as we speak. Any other comments on this specifically?
I would say on it that Ken Mann has done a lot of research on it too. And he has the citations. He has all the citations necessary to support exactly what I just said. Like, I'm not great at getting citations. I just learn about something and it is what it is. Ken has all the citations and stuff like that. That's what. So Ken has all that information.
Just before we do, I'll round out the live show shortly, but I'll put this diagrammatical example of us at the centre of hell on an equatorial plane. That's what you've got. The extended celestial plane is what you've got going out to the outside edge. Inside the glorified protractor globe Earth is the equatorial plane. That's where we're measuring these angles from.
Can I just point out something? That the EQ mount, same as with the solar mounts. And there's three of them. There's an EQ mount, there's a solar mount, which is used basically the same as the EQ mount, except for the timing of the motion. It's slightly slower, because the EQ mount is although these days you can set them to either, but the EQ mount originally was set to sidereal time, which is the movement of the stars. Solar mount set to solar time, so it's the movement of the sun. And then you have what's known as an altitude and azimuth mount, or elevation and azimuth mount, which is just basically very much the exact same thing, right? Where it just has elevation, which is up and down, and azimuth, which is a 360-degree circle. So all of these things all pre-assume a flat plane, right? But the thing is that they all move themselves. They're designed to move. Like the solar mount or DQ mount or any of them, they're designed to move. They're not designed to just pick a point in the inertial reference frame, because within their paradigm, the sun is in the inertial reference frame. So what the mount should do within their paradigm is just hold stationary on the sun and allow the Earth to rotate underneath it by the rotation of the tripod or whatever, right? But that's not what they do. They're designed to actually turn left and right. You can see it in some of my videos only just from 3 weeks ago there. They're designed to actually turn to the left or to the right, right? So they're designed to turn at different, as I said, the newer ones, they're all like, they can turn at sidereal or solar rate, and they can also do lunar rate, I think, as well. You know, things like that. So the point is that they're designed to actually turn. upon a stationary plane. So the thing about it is they were created, right, with the pre-assumption that people are on a rotating globe, right? But people think they were people think they were created with that pre-assumption, but they're not. They're created to work with the celestial dome, right? While it's on a stationary flat plane. That's how that was the purpose of their creation. But the problem is that they pre-assume it's crazy. This is like real ball or craziness. It's like it's designed to not hold stationary. It's designed to actually move left or right, and to be on a stationary plane. But it's supposed to be some kind of a proof of a globe. Right. I was calling it out way back in 2016 or 17.
Same goes for the sextant.
Some of the present. Go on.
I was just saying exactly correct. The EQ mount, same goes for the sextant. These things are unequivocally flat Earth utilising tools. The Earth must be flat for them to work.
Yeah, well, if they have anything that has to... sorry.
Go on, Eli.
You want to read out the citation I just put in Master B?
I can do. All for me to read. Sorry. Do you want to read it?
For me? Okay, I can read it. It may be a bit confusing for beginners to imagine the celestial equator and the related declination. A really simple way to picture this is to replace the sphere of the Earth with a flat circular platform on which the telescope stands. The platform has the size of the Earth's equator and the axis is the polar axis.
Perfect. I'm going to round out on that note. So with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Fortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to Discord and G+ for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.